Today marks the first official visit by a British Prime Minister to Albania, and with it, Sir Keir Starmer has entered the fraught terrain of migration diplomacy, surveillance technology, and what some call moral outsourcing. And the trip, nominally about cooperation, is in fact a test of the Labour government's nerve as it attempts to stem the record surge of channel crossings and salvage control from the rising tide of Reform UK. Starmer stood beside the Albanian Prime Minister Edi Rama at the port of Durres, their location symbolic of both passage and blockage, and it's from here and through the wider Western Balkans corridor that thousands begin a journey towards the English coast, and it's here that Starmer hopes to reverse the flow. But his attempt to brandish Labour's toughness on immigration must be weighed against both precedent and principle. The centrepiece of today's announcement was the plan for return hubs, foreign processing centres, where failed UK asylum seekers might be sent pending deportation. Crucially, this is not the Rwanda scheme, which was legally and ethically dubious in equal measure, and Starmer insists his approach applies only to those whose asylum claims have been rejected after due process in Britain. And here's the problem. Edi Rama made it abundantly clear Albania will not host such a hub. In fact, the so-called Meloni model, whereby Italy exports its migrants to Albania, is described by Rama as a one-off, not a template for Britain. So if not Albania, then where? The UK is reportedly in live talks with other Balkan states, North Macedonia, Montenegro, perhaps Serbia, but none of that has yet signed up. Nobody has taken up the idea. This is strategy by speculation. Alongside this diplomatic overture, Starmer announced a bolstering of Britain's technological arsenal against people smugglers. Now, forgery detection machines will be gifted to the Albanian police, £1 million will be invested in forensic upgrades in Tirana, and more sensationally, drones funded by the UK will now be deployed in the Western Balkans to detect traffickers and their convoys. It's a curious image, a British drone hovering over North Macedonia watching for smugglers, while back in Dover, 12,700 migrants have already arrived this year by small boat, a record figure. One might ask whether this is forward-thinking pragmatism or a foreign distraction from domestic impotence. Starmer also addressed what officials call the revolving door effect. Migrants are deported only to return, and today's measures are an attempt to close that loop. Biometric data sharing, DNA tracing, and reintegration schemes for Albanians who are sent back home. All of this, of course, entirely accessible through the Dublin III protocol, which was jettisoned by Lord Frost during the Theresa May and Boris Johnson Brexit negotiations. Some 5,294 people were returned last year, a doubling from 2022, and arrivals from Albania have dropped by 95% in 3 years. It's a rare statistical success, but one built on a Tory framework, a point gleefully made by Conservative critics. The Shadow Home Secretary Chris Philp called the visit pure theatre, accusing Labour of taking a victory lap for groundwork laid by Priti Patel and Suella Braverman. I'm not so sure he's right, frankly, and I think the Conservative Party needs to recognise its own failings through Lord Frost in ditching the Dublin III protocol and putting nothing in its place, as Chris Philp is only too clear in his private Zoom conversation. Starmer is not speaking just to Edi Rama or to Brussels. He's speaking also, of course, quite clearly to Nigel Farage. Reform UK is now ahead in the polls. Immigration is its lifeblood. And Labour's response has been to harden language, echoing Tory talking points, and risk invoking the ghost of Enoch Powell's Island of Strangers. Yet Starmer insists this is a pragmatic plan, not a silver bullet, but one of the many arrows in the quiver. Bilateral agreements, legal deterrence, faster removals, and the decapitation of smuggling gangs. Whether it works or not, the optics are the thing. A statesman in Tirana, a drone in the Balkans, and a battered dinghy still drifting towards Kent. Starmer's Albanian mission is a mixture of strategic realism and political theatre. It's serious in its intention, but speculative in its execution. It's framed as a departure from Rwanda, but it flirts with the same model of offshoring moral responsibility. Questionable. And For all the Prime Minister's rhetoric about smashing gangs and securing borders, the record numbers in 2025 remain an inconvenient truth. And and Edi Rama is absolutely right. His one-off deal with Maloney still gives him a headache, because if Maloney outsources the rejects, and I think at the moment Maloney's thing is to accommodate potential asylum seekers in Albania before they are processed in Rome. But Starmer's proposal is slightly different. It's to accommodate the people who have been rejected. And where are they going to go then? Is that Albania's problem? Or is that still Britain's problem? Where are they going to go if their host countries refuse to take them? And that is the problem. Or if the host countries cannot take them, like, for example, deporting somebody back to Afghanistan. So that seems to be an impossible deal. So what is the option? That they're going to live permanently in Albania? This hasn't been thought through, and it isn't clear. Britain needs to find an immigration policy that is both lawful and lasting. And today's theatre, high on symbolism, but the substance remains in question. Global challenges need shared solutions. Absolutely, quite so. That's what Starmer has said today. But the solution, one suspects, will require more than drones and deportation. It will require an honest reckoning with the forces of migration, with the realities of law and international law, with labour and humanity. And I think any sensible Prime Minister at this stage would start by redefining the 1951 Refugee Convention by holding an international meeting to thrash out exactly what a modern refugee should be in the 21st century, because the terms set out in the 1951 Refugee Convention are terms appropriate to the post-war period, and they were to revise and to redress the errors made in the pre-war period, when so many nations refused entry to Jewish refugees who were terrified of the rise of Hitler, and with good reason. And they refused entry because they didn't have paperwork. These people didn't have paperwork. They didn't have the exit visas. Germany was denying people exit visas, and therefore they were trapped in this hellhole where they were then deported to Poland and to places of execution.